Let's have an NFC North discussion, shall we?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's do this, everybody, on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. It's Matt Derry with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Thursday, June 19th. Happy Juneteenth, everybody, into a Friday, June 20th. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Mention Juneteenth, a very important day, certainly in our nation, in our country, and hopefully for those of you that had the day off today, you thought a little bit about what it meant, certainly for our African-American brothers and sisters here. A day of freedom for everybody, really, Juneteenth here today. Hey, shout out to our everyday listeners that are out there. Appreciate the everydayers. Got to give a hello and a shout out. I saw this girl on TikTok, Lauren Clark Sports Content. She loves her Lions, and her posts are pretty funny. And I sent her a message just saying that I would give her a shout out on Locked On Lions. So, Lauren, there you are. If you're on TikTok and you like Lions content, Lauren Clark sports content is pretty funny. Locked On Lions, as always, you can find us on social media. Follow me at Derry Speaks. And yes, it is a Thursday edition of the program. I want to get into the NFC North a little bit today. I want to discuss Pete Prisco's top 100. There are going to be a lot of top 100 lists that come out as we are into the summertime. And our very own Locked On Podcast Network is doing a top 100 as well. How many Lions are on Pete's list? We'll tell you coming up momentarily. Peter Schrager was on ESPN's Get Up the other day and made a proclamation about Jared Goff, which we must get into. And we'll have a call of the day today as well. If you want to be our call of the day, it is simple. Go to www.speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. That is speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. Leave a voicemail. Don't swear. Try to keep it clean. And you too can be our call of the day. All right. So a lot going on. We're getting close to training camp. We got a month to go and everything else. But when people are talking this summer and right now about the NFC North, they are talking about how good the division is, right? Lions are the defending division champs. They've won the division the last 2 years. Green Bay is very good, made the playoffs. Minnesota is very good, made the playoffs. And the Chicago Bears seemingly are everybody's pick, a chic pick to get into the postseason. And you will see people that will predict the Chicago Bears to win the division. All right. I think that's crazy. I don't think they're there just yet, but you will see some that will make that prediction based off of Ben Johnson being there, Caleb Williams having great weapons. They've built up the offensive line finally now in free agency, and people feel like that's going to be a good football team. Here's a couple of things to keep in mind when we're talking about the NFC North. Number one, did the Detroit Lions, our own team that we talk about every day here on Locked On Lions, and we are with you each and every day on this very podcast, but losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn, Frank Ragnow retiring. All right. There's a lot of negatives that certainly are attached to the Lions on if they can respond and if they can get better and if they can bounce back from last year's playoff loss, but there's still a lot of talent on this team. All right. And Dan Campbell is here and the quarterback is here and you're getting healthy on defense, right? All of these things play a factor. So that's the Lions story, right, in a nutshell. But there are people, let's just start with the folks that think that Green Bay, the Packers, right, are going to unseat the Lions and win the division. If you heard yesterday or you read yesterday, Jaire Alexander, easily the best cornerback and cover guy on the Packers, a former Pro Bowler, a former All-Pro, has signed a one-year deal with a lot of incentives worth $4 million with the Baltimore Ravens. All right, Ravens are taking a little bit of a risk on Alexander, who's had knee issues the last couple of years. There were some things off the field, and the attitude in Green Bay wasn't great. And so Jaire Alexander is now going to Baltimore. And I don't think anybody that was close to the Packers, including our friend and host of Locked On Packers, Peter Bukowski, thought that Alexander was coming back. The Packers, according to Alexander's father, who went on like a Green Bay radio station today, basically the dad went on the radio and said, if the Packers would have just offered the same contract, 1 year, $4 million with incentives and not so many performance bonuses, that's what the Packers apparently wanted, and some basically bonuses related to games played, then Jaire would have stayed in Green Bay. But if the Packers would have wanted to keep Jaire Alexander, don't you think they would have? All right. This guy's playing now on a prove-it 1-year deal with the Ravens for a lot less money than a lot of other cornerbacks are making. All right. So you are now taking Jaire Alexander off of the Packers, their best cornerback, and he's going to Baltimore. And so for the folks that say, oh, well, there's just a lot of off-field questions, I think, about Green Bay heading into this year. And why didn't they keep Alexander? And why is it that a lot of players leave Green Bay? The Lions now have been retaining and keeping their best players. Not the case with the Packers, at least lately. All right. And I know they've retained Jordan Love and everything else, but we'll have to wait and see on this. But as far as Green Bay right now, in terms of their cornerback room, you're talking about Nate Hobbs, who they signed in free agency from the Raiders, who's a fine player, but not as good as DJ Reed. Keyshawn Nixon, who a lot of people feel like, has kind of been an up and down player for them. Javon Bullard, their second round pick from last year as a nickel corner, is very, very good. He's a good player. But their backups aren't anything special. And that cornerback room, I think, last year got bailed out by their safeties a few times. We know how good Xavier McKinney is. Evan Williams is a really good football player as a 4th-round pick last year. The safeties in Green Bay are similar to Detroit in how good they are. All right. But I would take the Lions corners over the Green Bay corners all day. You're taking Alexander off of that team. All right. And I question how good Green Bay is going to be at covering wide receivers in this division this season. Now, they've got Rashawn Gary. They got Van Ness. They got good players. They're going to rush the passer. And I think Green Bay's defense is young, and there's some exciting players there. But Jaire leaving and questions about Gutekunst and LaFleur's contracts. You had Colin Cowherd the other day comparing Green Bay to Indianapolis in terms of good young team, but you question the quarterback situation, which, by the way, I'm sorry, but everybody with a brain would take Jordan Love over the duo of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson in Indy. Come on, don't do that. I think Colin is stirring the pot a little bit. But there are some questions about Green Bay, and now Alexander is gone, is my point. What about Minnesota? Vikings nearly unseated the Lions for the division last year. Some believe J.J. McCarthy is an upgrade over Sam Darnold. J.J. McCarthy's never taken an NFL snap. I think he's a good football player. I think he has a chance to be really good. And he's athletic. He's a winner. And I like him. But first-year quarterbacks just coming in and winning divisions don't normally happen. All right. I'm well aware of C.J. Stroud doing it a couple of years ago. All right. I'm well aware of Jaden Daniels last year. I'm not sure J.J. McCarthy is at that level just yet. All right. People can poo-poo Sam Darnold's season last year based off of the last 2 games, which was a disastrous Week 18 at Ford Field, and, of course, the playoff loss to the Rams. But that Minnesota team with Darnold last year won 14 games. And now you're asking a rookie quarterback who hasn't played, and I know last year he sat out due to injury, to have to get that team back to where they were a year ago. And I think they overachieved last year. And then the Bears, like we've talked about zillions of times on this show, I'm not going to rehash it. You have a rookie head coach that's never ran his own team before. And you're going to have real pressure and expectations on that team who feels like in that town, they need to win this year. So NFC North is loaded. The teams are all good, but there's issues a little bit in Chicago in terms of overpaying some of those O-linemen. is Caleb Williams ready to actually take that next step? The Green Bay stuff we talked about in Minnesota too. So there's going to be some people that write off the Lions. I've seen it nationally. Maybe Detroit takes a step back, blah, blah, blah. There could be steps being taken back in Green Bay and Minnesota and maybe even Chicago too, is my point. All right, coming up next, Pete Prisco from CBS Sports put out his top 100 NFL players. How many Lions made it? We will tell you coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. And the program today brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. All right. When I had some friends that started using Monarch Money, they realized just how much they were spending on food delivery. All right. It's crazy. Now you budget smarter and you save more. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, because you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. I'm back on Locked On Lions, a Thursday edition. If you missed yesterday, Mike Payton joined us, covers the Lions for A to Z Sports. Did a very, very good job. We appreciate Mike coming on the show and talking about Lions. If you missed that, go back and check it out. Of course, wherever you get your podcast, please also subscribe and check us out daily as well on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. All right. Pete Prisco is one of the better NFL writers out there. I enjoy Pete. Pete riles people up on Twitter, and he's kind of a curmudgeon at times, but I think he's an excellent NFL writer. He came out with his top 100 NFL players. Now, again, Locked On Podcast Network, we're going to do our top 100 and talk a lot about it on the shows in the coming weeks. I put in my votes for Lions players, and on the Pete Prisco top 100, two teams had the most players. Excuse me. Philadelphia Eagles had 10 players on the top 100. And yes, your Detroit Lions had 8 players that made the top 100. Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Jared Goff, and Sam Laporta. I would have had Aleem McNeil on this list. I think he's a top 100 player in the league. But as far as that, I would say that's a pretty accurate list in terms of having Lions on it. We're talking about 100 players, and the Lions have a lot of talent. You know, we sit here and talk about, oh man, what are they going to do without Ben Johnson? And, you know, Aaron Glenn's gone and Frank Ragnow's gone. And Frank Ragnow would have made 9 on this list, by the way, if he was still playing, because he is that good, in my opinion. Definite top 100 player. But 8 players in the top 100 is pretty impressive. All right. And it goes to show how much talent has been put on this roster by GM Brad Holmes. Not a surprise, the Lions did not have a player in the top 10. I think Aiden Hutchinson and Penei Sewell, I think you could argue, are top 10, top 15 players. Hutch obviously coming off the injury. Sewell plays a position that you don't really pay a lot of attention to in terms of right tackle. But Hutchinson came in at the highest point for a Lion player at number 15. Penei Sewell, number 21. Also, I think very fair. Jahmyr Gibbs was 32 on this list. Think about that for a second. And all the hand-wringing and screaming and hollering that many of us did, including me, when we were talking about Jahmyr Gibbs being drafted when he was drafted by the Lions in the first round. And now, top 32. Pretty impressive. Pretty sweet. Amon-Ra St. Brown came in at number 58 on the list. I think a little bit low for him. I think St. Brown's a top 50 player in the league. Kirby Joseph was 60, and Brian Branch was behind Kirby Joseph at 65. Remember, we told you last week or the week before that Pro Football Focus had their list out of the top safeties in the game, and Branch came in at number 5, and Kirby Joseph was 6. On this list, Kirby is 60, Branch is 65. I think Brian Branch, by the end of this season, is going to be a top 40 player in the NFL. I think he's just he's a heat-seeking missile out there. Jared Goff, number 77 on this list. We know how good he is, and I think that's pretty accurate. There's some quarterbacks certainly ahead of him on the list. Big names, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, guys like that. And then Sam Laporta, number 86, one of the top tight ends in the league. And as Mike Payton pointed out on the show yesterday, is going to get paid, is going to end up being one day the highest paid tight end in the league, just based on the timing of his contract and how good he is. So Hutch, Sewell, Gibbs, St. Brown, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Jared Goff, Sam Laporta. 8 Lions on this list. So when people want to talk about, the Lions going to be as good this year, and they can't close games, and end of the year 2 years ago, last year in the playoffs, blah blah blah. 8 top 100 players. That's pretty impressive. All right, one of those guys on the list we talked about before is Jared Goff, coming in at number 77. Peter Schrager, who was on Good Morning Football for many, many years on the NFL Network and is now at ESPN, was on Get Up the other day. And they were talking about the NFL a little bit and everything else. And Schrager said Jared Goff, to him, is the most important player in the entire NFC. Quote, I think Jared Goff is the single most important player in the NFC this season. There's been a raid of his coaching staff in the last several years, 6 different coaches gone, including Ben Johnson. And now you're telling me that that Frank Ragnow is gone, his longtime center, ? How about that? So Jared Goff, the most important player in the NFC this season. I'm not ready to go that far. I got news for you. I mean, let's just say that I don't think Peter Schrager is out of line by saying that. All right. And there's been a lot that's going to be put on Jared Goff, as we've been talking about, because Dan Skipper said it. Jared's going to have to make more calls at the line now that we have a different center. John Morton, the Lions offensive coordinator, has said it. I'm going to rely more on Jared. I'm going to lean more on Jared. But the most important player in the entire NFC this season, I got news for you. Dak Prescott is under so much fire in Dallas. He's just as important as Jared Goff, in my opinion. I think in Philadelphia, to not have a letdown, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley have to do. Saquon Barkley has to do what he did a year ago. All right. I think he's just as important. I talked about it. I think JJ McCarthy and Caleb Williams are just as important too. What if Caleb flops? What if it's just not going to work regardless of who the head coach is in Chicago? So to say that Jared Goff is the most important player in the NFC this season means that I believe, Schrager is kind of saying Goff has to pick it up because Ben Johnson's gone. And that's true to an extent. But if he has time to throw and his receivers get open and the running game is pounding the rock like they have been for the last few years, this wasn't just an offense that was just Ben Johnson and trick plays. All right. You know what's just as important as Jared Goff in the NFC this year? The Lions offensive line. Because if they're not blocking for Jared Goff, it could be a long year. Jared has been very, very good. He's made Pro Bowls. He's put up big numbers. But I'm not so sure that just automatically it makes him the most important player in the NFC. He's been consistent for the last 3 years, but there's still those detractors and doubters nationally that don't think he can do it without Ben Johnson and now without Frank Ragnow. Is he important? Yes. Is he a top 3, top 4 important guy? Sure. But the most important, ask the people in Minnesota about their quarterback and what they know about him and whether or not they know he can do it. Chicago. What if Saquon, like I said, doesn't have the kind of monster year that he had last year? There's plenty of guys that are just as important, I think, as Jared Goff. All right, coming up next, we will do our call of the day. That is next right here on Locked On Lions. I'm Matt Derry back with you on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. If you want to be our call of the day, you can be our call of the day by going to speakpipe.com/Derry, DERY podcast page. Leave us a voicemail. We've got a call of the day today as well. One of our everydayers checking in from the state of Virginia. Let's listen in to today's call of the day right here on Locked On Lions.
Hey, Matt, Jason from Virginia, everydayer. Appreciate the podcast. I'm trying to find some silver lining with Ragnow's retirement, and to me, it comes to the cap space that he's freeing up for us, right? So $14 million is not nothing, because we were in a position where we're thinking we got to pay Hutch and Gibbs and Laporta and Branch and some of these other guys. And we were thinking Jamo's the odd man out, right? So you just can't afford 2 of these elite wide receivers. But you look at kind of the high watermark for wide receiver 2s, and you've got like T. Higgins at $24 million. Well, Ragnow's cap space, maybe. Jamo's not going to get 24, I don't think. I think his off-field antics reduces his value a bit, and maybe he likes the team. He's willing to take a little bit of a team-friendly deal. If we can get him for like 19, 20, that could be possible that we can bring everyone back, our core guys. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I don't think. Let's remember something about the Jameson Williams situation, and thanks for the phone call. Number one, Jameson Williams' contract is not up for 2 more years. If the Lions want to extend him after this year, they can. But his 5th-year option has already been picked up for 2026. And that number will likely be around $20 or $21 million based on how it's slotted and his success. But to sit here and say that JMO in a couple of years would take a team-friendly deal and would only get 19 or 20, I don't see that happening. I don't. Receivers are making a lot of money. Brad Holmes has said it himself on a couple of occasions that receivers are expensive. It's tough to have 2 guys. Remember, Amon-Ra St. Brown is making $30 million a year. They're not paying Jameson Williams $30 million a year, but in 2 years, $30 million a year for a receiver might not be that expensive. TV deals, money, salary cap, everything's going up. Everything is going up. And I don't think anybody expected Max Crosby to be making $45 million a year just a couple of years ago. Myles Garrett making close to $50 million, or is it Crosby at 40 and Myles at 45? Whatever it is, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be asking for that kind of money. So to sit here and think that JMO, yes, there's a silver lining. Frank Ragnow's off the books. We'll free up some cap space for this coming season. And again, if the Lions have an injury at training camp, knock on wood, or need to go get a player or make some sort of a deal in the preseason or whatever to take on a big contract, they can do it. I don't believe they're going to do something like that or bring on a Trey Hendrickson who's going to want a long-term. They're not going to be paying 2 edge rushers $40-45 million a year, which is what Hendrickson's looking for. And I don't think they're going to pay 2 receivers $30 to $35 million a year at all. But I don't believe that JMO would take some sort of team-friendly deal. This is year 4 of his contract. Then next season, 2026, They've already picked up his option. They could trade him after this year. Heck, at the deadline this year, if they're not playing good football and they feel like they can get something for him, they could trade him then. But do I believe that he would be taking some sort of team-friendly contract and sign that? I don't. Agents are working for these players, and these players want to maximize their value. And for a guy like Jameson Williams, I also believe he would end up going elsewhere and getting Amon-Ra type money. Is he as good as St. Brown? No. Will they have a breakout year this year, and let's hope he becomes as good as Amon-Ra? That'd be great. It'd be great for the Lions. But then he's going to want to get paid. So no, I don't see any kind of team-friendly deal coming from J-Mo unless, as he pointed out on the call of the day, something happens off the field or he messes up again and does something dumb, and that lowers his value for other teams. But it only takes one. It only takes one other GM to say, we need a speed burner. We need a guy that can, man, he could take the top off the defense. Let's give him $30 million. The Lions are not, not, paying Jameson Williams $30 million a year or paying him more than Amon-Ra. I don't see that happening. They also have got to keep Laporta, Gibbs, Jack Campbell. Hutchinson's deal is not done. There's no long-term deal yet for Aiden Hutchinson either. Alex Anzalone wants a new deal. Brian Branch is going to want a new deal soon. A lot of guys that you want to keep. And I think J-Mo is not going to be here after the next couple of years. But at least they have him under control for 2 more. And who knows? If they want to keep him for 2027, they could franchise him. But I don't see that happening. All right, that'll do it for us on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts.